Drama unfolds, a trial suspended Chief Justice Walter Onohe. APC leaders tell minority National Assembly leaders, show up and mind your own business. In international news, Kingdom of Brunei takes extreme stance against gay sex and adultery, both now punishable by death. And in sport, Minister of Sport Solomon Delong hails Nigeria's wrestling team's victory in Tunisia.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The trial of the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onohe, at the Code of Conduct Tribunal in Abuja produced some drama on Monday, as his defense team made an enforced error. One of the witnesses was caught with a paper in the witness box, a paper that allegedly served as his memory aid while giving testimony. Prosecution counsel Aliyu Umaru says that on the bonanza during cross-examination, he challenged the witness on the paper with which he was fumbling. The witness said the paper belonging to him and had his handwriting on it. CCT Chairman Daladu Umaru says the paper is exhibit. Speaking with the journalists later, Umaru says the piece of paper found on the witness suggested he was a false witness. He also said, quote, "The handwriting on the paper does not also suggest that Lariwaju was literate as he claimed," end quote. It is not clear what effect, if any, the development would have on the case or its direction. Nigeria Senate President Bukola Saraki appears to be on the collision course with the ruling All Progressives Congress after advising political party leaders to allow elected federal lawmakers to choose their leaders on the day of inauguration in order to achieve stability of the 9th Assembly. Although his advice was not directed at any particular political party, many believe it was aimed at the All Progressives Congress leadership, whose members will take over the majority in the next National Assembly in May.
Legislators are held in the position of trust by the people, and the responsibility is a great one. The role of the National Assembly is one that is clearly defined, which is geared towards safeguarding freedoms and ensuring socio-economic development.
Well, APC is taking it personally. In its reaction, the party said Saraki and his minority party members should mind their own business when it comes to the election of principal officers of the National Assembly. APC National Publicity Secretary Lanre Issa Onilu says the position of the party is that there should be no meddling when it comes to positions that belong to the majority party. He said members of the minority party should just occupy the position that belongs to them and mind their own business. Saraki gave his advice after presiding over the first lecture by Lieutenant Clerk Mohammed Sani Omolori to newly elected assembly members. 181 sacked workers of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps must be celebrating today. The Supreme Court has upheld the decision of the Court of Appeal to recall them. The Supreme Court struck out NSCDC's appeal challenging the judgments of the lower court. Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Muhammad, leading 4 other justices, held that the Supreme Court had no jurisdiction to hear the case. He says Section 248, subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution provides that every legal dispute that rises from the National Industrial Court must terminate at the Court of Appeal. As a result, the acting Chief Justice said the applicant has reached its limits, and so the appeal is struck out as the matter had come to its finality. The case being appealed was the judgment by the National Industrial Court, reinstating 182 of the NSCDC personnel whom the court ruled were wrongly dismissed. The Industrial Court had ruled in 2015 that dismissed staff must be reinstated with their full emolument from the time they were illegally dismissed. Thousands of mobile phones are sold in Nigeria every day, and hundreds of mobile phones need repair as well each day. Only few major manufacturers have established service centers in different parts of the country, but Nigerians are not complaining. They prefer patronizing independent repair technicians who provide no frills services without a protocol of manufacturers' service centers. Reporter Phil Ihaza gives us details.
In this noisy, bustling environment, Ikechukwu Ikonso has been fixing phones for more than 10 years now. He began learning the trade as a last resort after dropping out of tertiary institution as a result of not being able to keep up with his school fees. But Ikonso says being a local phone doctor is now one of the most lucrative crafts in Nigeria.
It really paid me a lot. I've achieved so many of my dreams from fixing of phones. And I am working towards my target of owning a full shop where I can be selling phone parts in addition to the repairs and also make it more large.
According to a 2018 report by Nigeria's biggest online retail platform, Jumia, sales of mobile phones across Africa increased by over 70% between 2016 and 2017 and is projected to hit nearly 200% by the year 2020. Millions of people in Africa's most populous nation are active in social media and prefer to communicate via mobile phones, something that has seen a boom in the smartphone industry. However, the influx of these phones into Nigeria has created more pressure on international phone manufacturers to set up service centers for their large customer base. Service centers in Nigeria are not able to meet the demands of a rapidly growing population of phone users. Many people are now forced to patronize these local phone fixers who are readily available and affordable.
The issue with service centers, they used to delay and the queue is too much. But here, if you can stay here, they tell you 30 minutes, 30 seconds, you get your phone that same time. And if you go home, you don't have issue with the phone.
Now I've been here for more than just 2 minutes. They fixed my phone and you can see it. It's working now. So working perfectly. This one is more preferable than service center.
Unlike all these service centers, they will take the serial number of the phone and give you time to come back. But this one, they'll fix it for you instantly. You understand? When fixing for you, they will help you and tell you some things that is causing your phone having that problem. So that's why I prefer to fix my phone.
However, tech experts say the government will need to formalize the operations of these technicians while supporting them with the much needed resources to thrive in the business.
There are quacks and there are the professional ones. But if the government can come in, take a step of maybe trying to regulate that part of this business, maybe get a license for the professional ones and even train more professional ones through the professional ones that are available, I'm sure a lot of things can go well.
Until more foreign smartphone brands increase their service centers to satisfy the needs of their customers, millions of phone users are left in the hands of these local phone doctors to help troubleshoot issues with their gadgets.
Coming up, African stories. UN launches humanitarian aid appeal for cyclone hit Zimbabwe. And later, international news, death penalty in Brunei for gay sex and adultery.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to news events making headlines across Africa. Hurricane Idai swept through southern Africa recently and left a trail of death and destruction, especially in Mozambique, Malawi and Zimbabwe, where the government was already grappling with some serious economic conditions. Now the United Nations wants to lend a helping hand by launching a humanitarian aid appeal to help the country. Reporter Faraya Nwakutuya is on ground in Zimbabwe.
A timely delivery of critical supplies that will help Zimbabwe mitigate the ongoing humanitarian crisis.
80 tons of non-food aid has been flown into the country and is due to be dispatched to the Eastern Highlands, where it will assist some 10,000 people.
More is on the way as the UN launches an emergency appeal for funds to avert waterborne diseases and to meet the immediate needs of those displaced by the deadly cyclone.
60 million will cover food need, medicine need, early element of recovery, shelters, some of the basic water sanitation and logistic support to reach it, as well as non-food items in terms of tents, temporary accommodation, the cooking facilities.
Zimbabwe's government has deployed its strategic grain reserves to feed survivors and has given assurances there is adequate food for all the affected. Beyond the immediate relief, Zimbabwe requires long-term financial support to recover from the worst climate-induced disaster ever seen here, the losses of which are still being counted. The death toll is expected to rise as more of the missing are found amongst the ruin. Sniffer dogs from neighboring South Africa, brought in to comb the ravaged terrain, have narrowed the search area to 16 sites where those who are unaccounted for and presumed dead may be lying beneath the rubble.
The way Brexit votes are going in the UK Parliament, no one can predict the outcome. Whether Britain will actually divorce from the EU with a deal. South Africa is preparing for whatever happens and wants to ensure any potential Brexit impact to be cushioned by measures it would already have in place. Somtri Indio reports on these measures.
South Africa has put together a number of scenarios in an effort to prepare accordingly, even if there is an exit without a deal.
The British have indicated that if that happens, there is a tariff, the tariffs they will apply themselves towards the rest of the world, and those are duty-free for everything except 469 lines, and that would mean for South African wine, fruit and all kinds of vegetable-based products except for sugar, there would be no duties, so there would be no interruption in our trade for those products.
South Africa and the UK enjoy a solid trade relationship, and authorities here say they're not too concerned about Brexit as new deals will be negotiated. What is worrying, though, is ongoing investment. The UK is currently South Africa's largest source of foreign direct investment.
You're hoping that the UK doesn't suffer a lot through this Brexit issue, whichever what they decide to do. You're also hoping that if you decide to trade with another person, another country, that you're able to actually sell as much as possible. Unfortunately, some of the things that we sell have volatile prices and our earnings are hit, and that's why we have all these current account deficits.
The complications and difficulties that would arise would be in automotive products and components, where accumulation of inputs coming from the rest of the EU, from Britain, from us, all those issues would be extremely complicated and would be better solved if we could conclude our agreements.
Some experts believe a no-deal Brexit could be an advantage to countries negotiating new deals.
If the Brexit actually happens, they leave the EU, what will happen then is, the UK actually needs the world more than the world needs the UK. So you'll see there's a very interesting scenario where the UK would come to Nigeria, to Kenya and South Africa, for instance, as some of the biggest economies in Africa, to actually try and do deals there. So there's an opportunity there if you look at it as well, because then we could actually have win-win sort of trade agreements with the UK per se.
It's now wait and see.
And still in South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the latest spate of xenophobic attacks in the country and called on security agencies to arrest perpetrators. And dozens of foreigners were forced from their homes by angry mobs last week. Ramaphosa said he welcomed Monday's meeting between South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Lindiwe Sisulu, and ambassadors from several African countries to discuss the violence which mostly targeted Malawians and other African nationals in KwaZulu-Natal. Ramaphosa said African development depends on the increased movement of people, goods and services in different countries for all to benefit. He says criminals will not be allowed to set back these processes. We reported last week that Uber has bought its competitor, Karim, which operated in some Middle Eastern countries, including Egypt. Now, with that acquisition, Uber has become the only ride-hailing service in the country, and Yusur Hakim reports.
The $3.1 billion deal has taken the startup scene in the Middle East by storm.
As a business, this is a very good indicator. For a startup in the Middle East that's only 7 years old to be sold for such a huge amount, $3.1 billion. It follows Amazon that bought Souk.com for about $800 million. It's good for the Middle East startup market.
Karim operates in 23 countries in Northern Africa, the Middle East and Asia. And his drivers are a bit anxious about the future, though they were told by management there will be no changes yet.
I hope it will be for the good. This shows that Uber is a successful company that is growing, and by buying Karim, I hope they can provide better incentives and packages for us.
The Uber takeover, however, has not been welcomed by the anti-monopoly and the competition protection authorities in Cairo.
The same situation happened in Singapore lately when Uber bought rival Grab. It monopolized the market and raised prices a lot afterwards. There's an ongoing court case with the Singapore government now. Authorities fear the same here because the clients and drivers can both suffer and will not find an alternative company for Uber to work with.
Authorities in Cairo are still studying the effects of the merger. But even if Uber is penalized, the harshest penalty that is available by law is a maximum fine of $29 million.
When we return, international news, death penalty in Brunei for gay sex and adultery, and later, sport. Minister Solomon Dalong hails Nigeria's wrestling team in Tunisia.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to news from around the world. The small Southeast Asian kingdom of Brunei has announced the punishment for homosexuality and adultery would be death by stoning. The new law comes into effect from next week, beginning on April the 3rd. The new penal code says any individuals found guilty of the offences will be stoned to death. The punishment will be witnessed by a group of Muslims. The country's strict new laws were announced in 2014 and has been rolled out gradually. The latest phase of implementation, including the brutal new provisions, was quietly announced on Brunei Attorney General's website on December the 29th, 2018. Human rights groups were quick to express horror at the penal code, which will also order amputation as a punishment for theft. With more international pressure, the small nation said it has no plans to halt the law. British MPs have failed to reach a majority on 4 different alternatives to the government Brexit deal. In a series of non-binding votes on Monday, MPs rejected potential plans to hold a second referendum, retain much closer economic ties to the European Union after Brexit, as well as stop Brexit altogether to prevent a no-deal departure. Legislators voted 292 to 280 against the plan of holding a new referendum, while a cross-party customs union idea was rejected by 276 to 273 votes. MPs had previously rejected the government's withdrawal agreement negotiated with the EU, which set out the terms for the UK's departure from the EU on 3 occasions. The United Kingdom is set to crash out of the European bloc on April the 12th unless Parliament passes May's deal or the government is able to secure a long extension to Brexit. The ruling Justice and Development has lost mayoral elections in the country's 3 largest cities of Istanbul, Ankara and Izmir, in a stunning election setback for President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The official result will be released after the country's election board looks into objection by political parties who have 3 days to file their complaints. Anadolu's unofficial data shows Republican People's Party, the candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu, won the heated mayoral race in Istanbul, the country's largest city and economic center, with 48% of the vote, while the AK party candidate Binali Yildirim got 48.5%. In the capital, Ankara, official results show the CHP candidate Mansour Yavaz has garnered 50.9%, while the AK party nominee, Investment Ozekezi, trailing on 47.2%. Venezuela's Chief Justice has asked the lawmakers to strip opposition leader Juan Guaido of his immunity. The CJ is also taking a step toward prosecuting him for alleged crimes as it seeks to oust President Nicolas Maduro. Supreme Court Justice Michael Moreno said Guaido should be prosecuted for violating a ban on leaving the country when he went on a tour of Latin American nations to back a change in Venezuela's government. The opposition leader, who has immunity from prosecution as head of the National Assembly, is also accused by Maduro's government of inciting violence linked to street protests and receiving illicit funds from abroad. Since a massive power failure struck March the 7th, the nation has experienced blackouts and a breakdown in critical services such as running water and public transportation. 3 Pakistani soldiers had been killed when India and Pakistan exchanged fires across the line of control in the disputed region of Kashmir. The soldiers were killed in an exchange of fire in the Rawalpindi area of Pakistan-administered Kashmir on Tuesday. Tensions have been high in South Asia since India and Pakistan conducted air raids on each other's territory and Pakistan shut down an India fighter jet in February. Still ahead, sport. Minister of Sports Solomon Dalong hails Nigeria's wrestling team's victory in Tunisia.
You are watching ANN.
Looking for some Disney magic but don't know where to find it? We've got a magical solution just for you. Simply go to disneynigeria.mobi and get an exciting selection of games, short videos, wallpapers, shareables, and more. Explore a whole new world of Disney on your mobile, tablet, or PC. For just 200 Naira monthly, you get to enjoy the fun to infinity and beyond. SMS Disney to 11006 to begin. Terms and conditions apply. This service is only available to MTN customers.
Welcome back. In sports now, Minister of Youth and Sports Development Solomon Dalong is happy with Nigeria's wrestling team at the just concluded Africa Senior Wrestling Championship held at the weekend in Tunisia. The news agency of Nigeria reports the Nigeria won 6 gold, 2 silver and 4 bronze medals to retain their title and will also judge the best women's wrestling team in Africa. This year's COSAFA Cup will be affected by this disagreement between the Southern African Regional Body and Zimbabwe. The African Regional Body accused Zimbabwe of reneging on an agreement to host the 2019 edition. This year's tournament was set to start just weeks before the Africa Cup of Nations finals, offering 5 countries from the region who have qualified for Egypt a unique chance to warm up in a tournament setting. But presently looks like Angola, Madagascar, Namibia, South Africa and Zimbabwe will lose out unless late hosts are found. The venue for the 2019 edition of the COSAFA Senior Tournament, scheduled between May and June, remains undecided. That is in the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.